Welcome back to the She Does This podcast. I'm Jordy Lucas. I hope you've had an amazing week. This week on the site, founder of Pump Hair Care, Natasha J shares her top 5 tips for thicker, longer hair. And our newest contributor, actress Amy Ruffle, shares what she believes to be the Oreo principle. This week's guest, Sarah Todd, went from international model to Masterchef and now runs her own restaurants in India. She's also a TV presenter and author. I really wanted to chat with Sarah on the podcast because I think so many of us can relate to feeling unfulfilled in a career. And while for most of us, changing won't mean becoming an international celebrity chef, I think it's amazing to hear how a mother has made her dreams a reality even when those dreams shifted focus. So here's my chat with Sarah Todd. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this week. You're a model turned MasterChef contestant turned cookbook author. There's not much you haven't done. How are you going? It's 2021. Is the year treating you any better than 2020 did?
Well, I have to say that, I think when you're juggling so many different things, you really run at such a fast pace. And last year actually gave me the opportunity to just sit back and kind of take it all in. And I think it was a time for me to reflect and say, like, pat myself on the back a little bit and realize how much I've done. Because I guess when you're running, you just go to the next thing and you never really sit back and appreciate all the achievements that you've made. So I think it was a great year for me, and I got time to just be at home and not be jet lagged because I was on a plane every second day and just enjoy that time being at home and having a routine with my son and just living a little bit more in a routine.
Yeah. And you have achieved so much in your life. You were discovered as a model when you were 18, and you've gone on to work with high-end labels like Gucci and Hugo Boss. So what were you doing? Obviously you were in school, I'm assuming, but what was that like to be kind of discovered? How did that even happen?
Well, it was really strange. I was obsessed with entering competitions in magazines. So it would be like write 25 words or less, and then you win a prize. Yeah. And I was so obsessed. Like in 1 year, I think I won 20 competitions or something. And one of them was tickets to watch an Escada fashion show in Sydney. So they flew me down. I went to watch this fashion show and I was standing in the audience, and this lady came up from a publication and she was like, "Are you a model?" I was like, "No, like I live in a small town of 2,000 people, Walkerston, outside of Mackay." And I'd never thought that that's a full-time career of something you could do. And she was like, "Go into this agency tomorrow, tell them I sent you." And I walked in and I was so nervous. I could barely talk. I was such a shy kid. My teeth were chattering. They're, taking Polaroids of me and I'm freaking out. And they went away and then came back and they're like, "Here's a contract. We want to represent you." And I was like, "Mom," like this huge opportunity has come up. And I've always been a person that really has liked pushing myself and trying new things, and I was always studying and doing lots of things at once. So I just went for it and moved to Sydney, didn't know a single soul, and the agency kind of became my family. And it was definitely a challenging experience, I think, as a young girl getting catapulted into such an intense industry where it is, a lot about your physical appearance, about, you had to really push yourself to maintain a certain look and weight and all of that. So I definitely, went through a lot of changes throughout that period, but it took me all around the world and to lots of different destinations. So I was blessed to get that opportunity.
And so prior to that, what were your goals? Like, what did you want to do career-wise before that happened?
So I started university. So I wanted to get into fitness, to be honest, but we couldn't afford for me to go to university outside of Mackay. So I ended up starting a business degree in Mackay. I had 5 jobs at once. I was saving. I bought my first property at 18 years old and, was just working my tush off. And I've always been someone that, I've always wanted to succeed and push myself really hard, but I didn't really know where I wanted to go from there. I was just working really hard to save money and to look at the next opportunity. So I wasn't really sure what direction I was going to head in.
What a life-changing, like all the stars aligned for you to win that competition and then just being in the right place at the right time. That's incredible.
Yeah, I think so. I think, it was definitely a big opportunity to, be able to afford me to move to a main city. That was always my dream, to go to a main city and be able to explore what career to take. So that definitely gave me the tools to do that. And yeah.
So when did you discover this love for food? Because you then went on to train in classic French cuisine.
So I mean, as a model, people think that they don't eat and all of that, but you actually need to really understand what you're putting into your body. So I've always had, really thought about ingredients and produce and wanting to live a healthy, balanced life. But, you have to have energy. You can't just starve yourself. So, I was modeling for 8-9 years. Like, obviously you're going to eat to survive through that time. So I was always into really healthy eating. And, but it was when I had my son that I really started to delve into flavor more, because you've got a young baby. If food is not tasty for them, they'll just spit it out. So you want them to have nutrients, you want them to have flavor, but how do you achieve that? So I started to experiment with the dishes that I was making, or the baby food that I was making for him. And I'd spend all Sunday making these prepping for him, and I realized I really started to love it. And I became this crazy cake lady, and every birthday party that he was going to, or anyone's party, no matter how sick or whatever I was like, take the cake. I was just obsessed with like these cakes. So that's where it kind of developed. And then I started cooking like 3-course meals after working all day, come home and just experimenting and really playing around with different dishes. And it just kind of took off from there. And I remember I was at one modeling job. I was living in London at the time, with my son, and I was at this job, and it was something like 70 outfits in one day. And I'm sitting there on my lunch break just going, is this really what I want to be doing for the rest of my life? I just changing, taking photographs, very repetitive. I just wasn't feeling like I was being fulfilled. So I said to, the other model sitting next to me, I was like, I want to be a chef. Like, I want to go to Le Cordon Bleu. And he's like, you're going to be the next Nigella. I'm like, oh, I would love that. So I applied for Le Cordon Bleu, started that process. I was topping my class in, all the modules and doing really, really well. And I realized that it could be a career. So I started there, went on to apply to Masterchef and got into Masterchef. And I still remember one of the first episodes, we were, I'd taken up my dish and the judges said, put your hands up if you think Sarah is one of the biggest threats in this competition. And I turned around and I saw the whole room almost had their hand up, and I was so overwhelmed and like, oh my gosh. Wow. Room full of very talented people, they thought I was up there. So I really lacked confidence in myself in a lot of ways. And I don't know whether that stemmed from, constantly being judged through the modeling days, or I'm sure there's something connecting the dots there. But it was this real boost of energy for me to go, I think that this can become a career. So I gave myself a year, threw myself into food, and things kind of catapulted from there.
So you trained at Le Cordon Bleu, and then when did you sort of make the decision to come back to Australia? Was that to try out for MasterChef?
Yeah, I literally flew over from the UK to for the first round of the competition, and got into the top 50 and flew back. I was like, okay, we need to go back to Australia to do MasterChef. And it was definitely a really big life-changing decision. And MasterChef is such an incredible beast. It's so powerful, and the percentage of people that come out and move into the food industry is huge. So it's a really respected show. I think people love it all over the world. And And it's a really positive show for all generations of people who watch. So it was a great platform for me to start off on.
With the experience on MasterChef, you're also being thrown into the media and developing a media profile in Australia. What was that experience like, being recognised?
Yeah, I think we're pretty the Australian community, I think, are quite subtle when it comes to seeing people that have been on television. It's not so fanatical, I think. And I remember sitting at a cafe and someone's like, so what are you up to now? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, obviously he's recognized me. But he hasn't said anything, so it's kind of a strange experience. And I think everyone's quite subtle with that here. So that was a reasonably smooth transition. But I have to say, when I started going to India, so one of my in MasterChef, I cooked aloo gobi, which is basically like a home food or street food in India that is a very common. So MasterChef Australia is huge in India. And when this episode aired in India, there was like 50,000 followers on my social media contacting me and following my journey, because they love that, an Australian girl is really embracing their culture and their cuisine. And so I decided to fly over. And when I got off the plane, I was like being pulled and photos, and I literally started hyperventilating because, to go into this woof of like, celebrity life was so almost instant that I really, it definitely took me a long time to adjust to that, because, at the end of the day, we're all the same. And then when someone knows so much about your life and, maybe you're having a bad day or, but everyone's coming up to you, like, it was a really big transition for me. And I think it definitely took me quite some time to get used to that. And I just remember, someone giving me some advice who has a large profile, and I think when you're put into the public eye, you really do need to be a positive role model. You need to embrace people that come up to you, because it is part of the reason why you are so successful. You need people to be coming to your restaurants, buying your cookbooks, and you do need to give back. So it definitely there was a quite significant points of change throughout my career that has given me the tools to kind of get used to that.
So where did your interest for India and Indian cuisine, where does that come from?
So my son is half Indian, and so I was exposed to that culture quite some time ago. And I just remember seeing these dishes being made, and it's you go from French cuisine, which is very structured and by the book, into this cuisine where it's a pinch of this, a pinch of that, a bit of love, and it's all about the touch and the feel of creating a dish. And so I feel like my mind is a little bit more laid out in that French style of being a bit by the book, and I really needed that shake up, because you always hear this advice from people that, become your own unique personality, let yourself shine. And that is such a hard thing to do, because when you're trained, you are instantly going to follow that technique or, that style. And it really took me a long time to go, well, actually, what is my style of cooking? And it's gotten to a place now where, the technique is there, and the styles of, techniques in cooking is very French, but the flavor is really taking on all of these incredible flavors of India. And it's become quite a unique style of my own. And for a long time, I was kind of trying to say, well, I'm not Indian. Why am I, cooking so much Indian food? But I've been spending 6 years now in India that want to embrace the experiences that you've had throughout your life and allow them to shine. It's ultimately what makes up our personality, from the modeling days to, MasterChef days. It's, good and bad experiences that you go through do make up who you are, and you have to embrace it. And so that has really influenced my cooking along the way.
So you've opened up 2 restaurants in India.
Yeah, 3 now, actually.
3? Oh, wow. Okay. That's incredible. So obviously there's a lot of cultural differences between India and Australia. What is it like, and what's the difference between being a businesswoman in Australia and a businesswoman in India?
I think in the early days, to be honest, I had gone from being a worker as such, working for other companies in modeling, to straight into being an entrepreneur. And there's no one to validate your ideas. You are the boss. And so when it comes to making decisions, the biggest transition, and I think this would have been the same if I was doing it in Australia or in India, was to build up that confidence to be able to trust in your instincts and trust in your decisions. And ultimately, if and there was things that failed along the way, but you have to learn and you have to grow. I think it's so important that you just keep plowing forward and making decisions and not getting stuck on certain times in your career. So I think it really was that first 6 months that was the most challenging of setting up the restaurant, and not knowing. I had never even run a kitchen, so there was a lot of learning along the way, and it was just about throwing myself into each section of business, from design to interiors to electricity, like all the elements that go into building a restaurant. And then you work on the menu, which is the only thing I was familiar with at the time, was cooking. But there's so much more that goes into it. And over that period, I definitely changed, as a person and as a businesswoman. And I think it just takes time. So now, I'm doing a lot of work in Australia, and I guess the main difference that I would notice is in India, if there's something coming up, and a lot of the work can happen quite last minute, and it's like phew, overnight everything's done, and there's so much anxiety and build up in me. But in India, people are quite used to knowing that everything's going to come together in the end. And in Australia, there's a lot of pre-planning and things happen a lot in advance, but along the way things change. And I think in Australia, I've noticed during COVID, everyone's more like working on the fly. They're being able to adapt and change. And I think that it is actually a good way of working, where people do you're not just doing one set job, you're having to manipulate. And now we're becoming tech savvy because we have to do things across on social media and all on our own without having a crew there to film for us. So we're having to really adapt, and I think it's great skills for us. It's building resilience. It's giving us the tools to not let things get us down, working through different challenges along the way. So that's something I've been really good at from doing business in India for the last 6 years. So I think it's about just making things work.
How has COVID affected your businesses in India?
Oh, massively. We obviously had to shut down during the peak of COVID in the early days. One of the restaurants is reopened now, and Touchwood is doing really well and is busy, but the other two are in center, business hubs where it's a really high density population. And at least in Goa, it's open plan. There's lots of, space and all of that. So we're doing well there. But I mean, just not being able to get on the plane and fly over and taste, at the end of the day, it's a tangible product that I need to be there for. So, it's great. We've built a really good culture in the restaurant, and the staff, a lot of the staff is there from the first opening months of the restaurant, so 6 years later. So I think it goes to show how important it is to create a culture in your business, and build that longevity in terms of workers who understand the business. And it's allowed me to feel a little at ease not being physically present in the restaurant.
I was going to say, do you have people over there that you really trust with your baby?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard. Like in the early days, I never left. I was in there. I was sleeping 4 hours a night every night when it was, early days. I was in there all day long, and I could never really walk away. But now there's such a great team there that I feel like, and I think we need to realize that to expand and to grow and make our mark around, the world and leave a legacy, that we do need to be able to let go a little and to realize that it might not be exactly how you want it, but it's not necessarily bad. It's just different to how you possibly would have done it. So it's giving the trust to your team and allowing them a little bit of flexibility and not micromanaging. And I think that's when you can really start to expand and grow your business. So
how you've got almost a 10-year-old son. So how do you go with splitting your time with between Australia and India? How is his schooling? Like, does he do school online, or how does that work with him?
So basically so his dad and I are separated, and we're 50-50 in terms of taking care of Phoenix, and he comes over on all the school holidays and spends that time in India, and we've got a place in Goa, so it feels like home for him. And I bring my nephew and my mom over every year, and it's like this little summer holiday in Goa every year. And it's amazing. And then during term, I'm literally on the plane every 2-3 weeks, so it's definitely quite taxing on my body physically, but I got quite used to sleeping wherever and whenever possible, and I forgot what it was like to not be jet lagged. So but yeah, it's just, it's incredible how resilient kids are, and he's such a happy boy. And I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to live a white picket fence life that it's not, you need to be happy. You need to be doing the things that you love. And, ultimately we need to work hard, and women are having to be in the workforce, and both by choice and necessity as well. And we make it work, and it's been incredible to show that something, an uncommon situation can work so well. And he's such an incredible boy. He's so balanced and happy, and quite mature in his thinking, and a kid at the same time. So it's been amazing, actually.
I think travel is so important for children as well. Absolutely. Like, he would be so worldly and have seen so much, which is incredible for any young person to experience.
Yeah, and I truly feel that not just young people, but people of all ages, travel and culture teaches us the most in life. And resilience really is key. And getting into the heart of another culture and realizing the positives that you can take away from that culture, and add that to our life, and it's amazing. And he's like last night we made paratha for dinner, and seeing like him helping rolling out these flatbreads and loading it with vegetables and cooking it. And this comes from, he has genuinely had that experience in India, having it made fresh by locals, and it's such an incredible thing that he's learning so much. And I think it's important for sure.
Yeah. And you're obviously setting an incredible example for him, running your business, being so, such a go-getter with your career. It's an amazing thing for a young boy to see his mother do. I think so many kids, and we're conditioned in society to think that the dad is the breadwinner and that goes out, but you're flipping that on its head. What else is important for you to teach Phoenix?
I definitely feel that Phoenix needs to respect the fact that women are going to be out there in the workforce, and things are changing a lot. And it's so incredible that it is just the normal for him. And I remember having, multiple conversations about, there's a really funny story, actually, I have to tell you. In the early days when I started traveling to India, obviously working in the restaurant, it looks like I'm just hanging out in the restaurant. So, for a child, he's like, so I just sat down with him when I was just about to fly out and go for like a 2-3 week trip. And I said to him, I just want you to know that while I'm away and, away for work, that I'm always here. I can speak to your teachers whenever you want. If there's any issues at school, call me anytime. And I just said, like, I wanted to make sure that he understood what I was doing. So I was like, I hope you understand that when I'm going to India, you know, people come into the restaurant, they'll buy dinner, and, you know, that's how I earn my money. Like, I'm going to go there for work. And he was like, oh, I just thought you were doing nothing. Oh my gosh. Thank goodness I explained this to my child. And it's so important for communication because, you know, it probably does look like I'm just sitting there drinking cocktails all day long. But it's important to just have conversations with your kids. And like, you know, I will sit down with him sometimes, and if he doesn't want to, I don't know, do his homework or something, I would just say to him, look, you know, I'm trying to do my best. I'm a working mother. Like, we want to have a healthy relationship and be happy with each other. And I'm only asking you to do this because you're going to be learning. And, you know, I don't want to make this hard for us both. And you want to make it hard for us. Like, we're both trying to achieve the same thing. And we do just have a conversation like that. And it sounds pretty mature in terms of what we talk about, but it is just having conversations. You know, we say, do your homework, but kids just want to know why. Just going, but why do I need to do this? Like, explain it to me and I'll probably want to do it. You know, a prime example was Phoenix didn't want to go to swimming lessons, and he couldn't swim up until Christmas, and I put him into intensive swimming lessons. And he, you know, I had to really encourage him to do it. He was doing it almost every day, and I saw him start to like really get to love it. And then he had his swimming carnival just last week, and he got first in his freestyle race. Went from not being able to swim to swimming. And you know, he was just like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so happy. Can I do swimming lessons twice a week now? So, you know, it's just trying to have those conversations with our kids and, you know, let them know the why. Even when it comes down to food, it's making a compromise with your children. It's not just saying, you know, eat everything on your plate. Let's have a compromise. If you want to have one vegetable on your plate tonight, you choose what it is. You decide which vegetable you want to eat for dinner tonight. And that can come down to, you know, even extracurricular with tennis lessons or swimming or all of these things. It's about having that conversation with our kids and just being a little bit more open. And I feel that is what's made our relationship so strong. And and we just work through everything, and it's pretty amazing, I have to say. He's such a great boy.
What does his lunchbox look like with a celebrity chef as a mum?
Well, to be honest, my son is quite he likes plain things.
Oh, okay.
Not a very fancy eater at all. So I'm a little bit ashamed to say. I do have to encourage him to eat certain things, but he just really likes simple ingredients. So he'll have like sliced up carrots and fruits, and he's obsessed with these chocolate chip cookies. So we'll spend the weekend making some cookies for him to take to school, and he loves sharing them around as well. And it's pretty basic. And I think we put so much pressure on having to have every meal loaded up with nutrition. But if he wants to have one meal a day where he's just eating quite basic food, then I'm okay with it. And I, you know, encourage him when he gets home to have a really wholesome dinner or breakfast. And, you know, we put so much pressure on ourselves. And I think it's just more important to say, you know what, it's okay if he just has a cheese sandwich for lunch. And we come home and we, you know, he loves a massaman curry. So and trust me, he's not like that with all of his dishes and so fancy. And but yeah, it's just balancing it. And we, you know, it is a constant conversation to ensure that he's eating healthily and you know, having fuel. And that's the other thing with him getting into so many activities now, he needs the fuel. So it's I think the kids understanding how this process is, and he's such an intelligent boy, he loves learning. So understanding that it turns into energy, it's really helping him, you know, make his own decisions.
Yeah. So you've come back to Australia, you're presenting on Farm to Fork, and you've got your new book coming out. What are the other plans for 2021 and beyond?
So I've spent the last 6 years traveling all around India, and it's crazy that I've been to probably 20 cities in India, and I've explored so much of India, and I now just feel like I want to do the same in Australia. And I'm so I'd been wanting to spend more time at home and be back in Australia. So, the opportunity to do this show, which is great. It's 90 episodes, so it keeps me busy for a long time.
Oh, wow.
And it's just exploring how much we have to offer in Australia. So I am, really working on local produce, understanding what we have here. And my philosophy with food, it really is eating the food that surrounds you. And that is the best way to live a balanced life, just following the seasons and what's available and what's fresh. So my focus this year is definitely on Australia and just being more here. I've been working on a range of chili sauces, actually, because I'm obsessed with chili.
Wow.
So that'll be coming out later in the year, but again, all Australian made, and really excited about that one.
And I guess, is that you having to pivot in terms of, you can't obviously be over in India, so you've got to create work for yourself here?
Yeah, so I just realized I was doing so much work that entailed travel. And for me, I mean, you can't keep living that lifestyle forever. I literally did, I think, something like 40 flights or more last year. So wow. It was just, it's not really great for the environment, for one, and it's hard on the body. So this time has definitely made me realize that I need to be a little bit more smarter with the way that I'm working and be more at home. I think these years with my son are definitely very important. He needs that support, get 10 years old in a couple, on Women's Day, I think, when this is coming out. So he is, I think it's definitely important the next few years. So I do want to just be creating work where I'm more at home and able to work at my own schedule when necessary.
And you have over 400,000 followers on Instagram, so I'm sure that there's plenty of work for you there. And you do this great series on Instagram where you have, you've had Tim Robards, Rachel Finch. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I really wanted to, I just feel like with travel, we spoke about this, you learn so much, and we are all missing it, and it is integral for us to grow as people. So I really wanted to delve into different people's travel experiences and bring that home, here in Australia. So we've started this travel series called Sunday Travels, and it's delving into different people's experiences and recreating those dishes. And it's been amazing, Tim getting his hands dirty and making the sanyu torte pasta from scratch, and it was amazing. He ended up making it again the next night for his family. So it's we've got some really fun guests coming up with great dishes that I'm really excited for you all to see. It's just been a really great way to keep your mind active, I think, and experience that as well. So travel without the jet lag.
All right. Thank you so much, Sarah, for your time. I can't wait to see what you get up to. And all the best with your new book.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really excited. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of She Does This. If you have loved this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favourite podcast platform. Check out daily updates on the website, shedoesthis.com, and keep in touch on socials. Just search She Does This. I will speak to you next week.